All right, imagine this. You're at this royal banquet, right? Tudor England. It's all, opulence and grandeur. But then in strolls the king, wearing a jewel-encrusted Turkish overcoat. Pretty surprising, huh? You don't exactly picture that when you think of Henry VIII.
Yeah, no, not really.
So today we're going beyond those
Oh.
typical Tudor images to uncover a much more, I don't know, vibrant, complex picture of life in 16th century England.
It's so easy to just get stuck on those same old images of the kings and queens, but what I think is really fascinating about this period is, I guess you could say that clash between tradition and change, those global influences, and even the everyday people. Their stories are sort of hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're going to try to do today. We're doing a deep dive into a collection of art, objects, even architectural spaces that tell us a much richer story than you might find in, a typical history book.
We'll be focusing on Hampton Court Palace today, but not just the typical highlights. For example, did you know that the oldest surviving parts of the palace were actually built, not for Henry VIII, but for Cardinal Wolsey, his right-hand man?
Oh, wow. So it's almost like stepping into a time capsule.
Yeah, exactly.
These rooms, I think they're called the Wolsey rooms, give us a glimpse into the day-to-day life of the Tudor court. Not just the king himself, right? But everyone.
Exactly.
You can almost imagine the whispers of, I don't know, political intrigue, servants getting these lavish banquets ready.
Definitely.
Even just those quiet moments, like people just contemplating.
And what I find fascinating is how these rooms are being used for an exhibition that's exploring these broader themes of Tudor life. It's not just the architecture itself, but, the people who actually lived and worked there. And the objects, those everyday objects that reflect their beliefs, anxieties, aspirations, all of it.
It's almost like these objects are talking to us, across the centuries. And speaking of objects that really reflect power and prestige, we can't overlook those grand history paintings. Those were so popular back then, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about things like the Battle of the Spurs, the embarkation at Dover, and of course the Field of Cloth of Gold. They just scream Tudor dynasty with all the vibrant colors and, those intricate details.
They were definitely meant to make a statement, but what's interesting is that a lot of these paintings were actually created much later in Henry VIII's reign, possibly as a kind of propaganda.
Oh, okay.
Imagine this. You're part of a French delegation, right? You arrive at Hampton Court, and you're immediately greeted by these massive canvases covered in gold leaf. I mean, what a display of wealth and authority.
Yeah, it's like a total Tudor era power move. But here's what I think is really intriguing, right? Beyond all that obvious symbolism, those paintings are just packed with details of just ordinary people, soldiers, sailors, cooks, servants, everyone. It's like the invisible workforce behind all that grandeur.
Right. It's so easy to just focus on the powerful people, but I think those, what you might call insignificant details, actually offer us a glimpse into, the lives of everyday people.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that history isn't just about the kings and queens, but about this whole tapestry of human experiences. But let's shift gears a bit and think about the world beyond the palace walls, all right? The 1500s, that was a time of massive change. It was like a period where these brand new ideas were challenging those long-held beliefs and, just shaking up society as a whole.
Yeah, think about it, right? You had Copernicus coming up with this revolutionary model of the solar system. He was challenging that core belief that the Earth was at the center of everything. Then you had global exploration and trade opening up all these new horizons, bringing in, these exotic goods ideas from far away. And of course, the Protestant Reformation was totally changing the religious landscape.
Wow. Yeah, that was a crazy time.
It really was a period of intense intellectual and spiritual, change.
It's almost like an earthquake, shaking up everything people thought they knew.
Mm.
But here's what I always find fascinating, right? Not everyone was suddenly embracing these new ideas. If you look at the Tudor court, for example,
Yeah.
they were fascinated by these new scientific advancements, but they also still relied on astrology.
It reminds us that historical change, it's rarely like this clean, simple process. It's more like these layers of beliefs and practices that kind of coexist, sometimes clash, and slowly transform over time.
Exactly. It's not just boom, gone, new idea. It was more like this, I don't know, this messy blend of the old and new and people just trying to make sense of it all. And, we can't forget the darker side of this era either, right? Colonization, exploitation of resources, and the start of the slave trade. These were global trends with, tragic consequences that we still see today.
Yeah, that's an important point. I mean, the 16th century was a time of incredible innovation and discovery, but it also marked the beginning of some of the most, well, destructive forces in human history.
And these global trends definitely had an impact on England, especially when it came to religion, right?
Hmm.
That shift from Catholic dominance to the rise of Protestantism. And, well, of course, there's Henry VIII's break from Rome. That was a time of intense religious upheaval, and you can really see it reflected in the objects from that period.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like each object tells its own story. So you've got, for instance, these pilgrim badges
Yeah.
representing traditional Catholic faith. But then, in contrast, you have this painting that actually depicts the Pope being stoned, which shows that, that growing anti-Catholic sentiment. And then there's this really poignant object. It's a rare surviving alabaster altarpiece. It's like this reminder of all the beauty that was lost during the destruction of religious art.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think about all that destruction, the loss of all those incredible works of art.
Yeah.
But it also highlights that human cost, right? This religious upheaval,
Oh,
all
absolutely.
that anxiety and uncertainty that people faced when their world is basically turned upside down. And speaking of clinging to faith, in such a changing world, there's one object that really stands out. It's a traveling chest. It belonged to a Catholic priest, and it's got all these secret mass supplies.
Wow, that's incredible. Just imagine the risks this priest was taking, continuing to practice his faith in secret, like defying the official state religion. It's a testament to how strong his convictions were.
It's a reminder of the dangers people faced because of their beliefs.
Wow.
But it also shows, that resilience of the human spirit,
Right.
that unwavering faith that allowed people to find comfort and strength. And amidst all that religious turmoil, there's another object that really reflects the changing times. The Hampton Court astronomical clock. It was built for Henry VIII in 1540, and it's way more than just a clock, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this clock is a marvel of engineering. It didn't just tell time, It also showed the zodiac, phases of the moon, even high tide at London Bridge. It's this amazing blend of scientific ingenuity and, well, I guess you could say the lasting influence of astrology.
Yeah, like it kind of embodies that whole Tudor mindset, embracing new technology, but, also holding on to those traditional beliefs.
It really does. It challenges those simple ideas we have about historical progress. The 16th century wasn't just a clean break from the past. It was this complex mix of old and new ideas, beliefs, practices.
All mixed up together.
It's fascinating.
Okay, so we've talked about religion, science, but what about fashion?
I think a lot of people picture the Tudors as like solely focused on this image of Englishness, right? But they were actually really influenced by styles and goods from, well, all over the world.
Right. That whole idea of like this monolithic Tudor identity, it's a misconception.
Hmm.
And, there's this portrait of an unknown woman and she's wearing this Ottoman-inspired dress. It really shows those global connections. It suggests that, well, the Tudor world was far more cosmopolitan and interconnected than we might think.
Yeah, it's like a visual reminder that globalization, it's not a new thing. Even way back then, you had trade routes bringing people and cultures together, influencing everything from fashion to art to architecture. But we shouldn't romanticize, right? I mean, this interconnectedness, it had a dark side too.
That demand for luxury goods, it led to exploitation and, well, it contributed to the growth of the slave trade.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even the most, beautiful objects can have these complex and oftentimes troubling histories. It's important to acknowledge that that darker side of globalization, all the exploitation and human suffering that often hides beneath that surface of, beauty and wealth.
It's definitely a challenge, not just for historians, but for all of us, to really confront those uncomfortable truths. Okay, so we've explored the world of kings and queens, cardinals, all these objects reflecting their power. But what about the, everyday people who kept the Tudor court running? The builders, the laborers, the artists, even the, what are they called? The gong farmers. Those are the brave souls responsible for sanitation.
It's pretty amazing that we actually know some of these individuals by name and even their salaries, thanks to all those Tudor records. Those are really detailed. These records give us this, well, it's kind of a rare glimpse into the lives of those people who are so often overlooked in the, the big stories of history.
It's like we get this sudden close-up on these people, their skills, their struggles, and, how they contributed to Tudor society. Like take Anne Harris, for example. She was the laundress who was responsible for Henry VIII's, well, hygiene,
That's quite a job.
including those, Those infamous leg ulcers he had.
Oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about those. And the records say she was specifically tasked with using sweet powders, sweet herbs, and other sweet things.
Can you imagine? What a job.
I know, right?
Apparently, she was pretty good at it because the records actually show that she got a big raise. They doubled her income to 20 pounds a year in 1546. Keeping Henry VIII clean and, well, less odorous was definitely a highly valued service.
It really shows the importance of even those, what you might call mundane tasks and the value of skilled labor. It's those kinds of details that really enrich our understanding of Tudor England. It gives us this more nuanced human perspective on this, iconic era.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive so far, from grand palaces and history paintings to everyday objects and, well, the lives of everyday people. But there's one final thought I want to leave you with.
All right, I'm listening. The Tudors, they were a lot like us in a way. They were caught between the old and the new, trying to figure out a world on the verge of huge change. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are we living through something similar? I mean, think about it. All these technological advancements, social and political shifts, all those global challenges, it's a question worth thinking about.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost like history is holding up this mirror, right,
Yeah.
to our own time.
Yeah.
And speaking of reflections, remember those global influences we talked about, like Henry VIII's Turkish overcoat? Such a cool example of, how connected the world already was back then.
It's so easy to forget that globalization, it's not some new thing, but this interconnectedness, it had some serious implications, both good and bad.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, yeah, it led to this incredible exchange of ideas, new technologies, different cultural practices. But on the other hand, it also meant diseases spread more easily, more exploitation, conflict.
Yeah, it's a reminder that progress, well, it often has a cost. And those benefits of globalization, they weren't always shared equally. But to really get the Tudors, I think we have to go beyond those big stories, and really look at it from the point of view of those people who were, well, marginalized or whose voices weren't heard.
Absolutely. We need to move past those stories of the elite and really explore the experiences of everyday people, right? The laborers, the craftspeople, all those women who worked so hard behind the scenes to keep everything running.
Yeah, their stories, they're often just fragments hidden away in archives or embedded in the details of objects and artwork. It's almost like a historical puzzle, right? You have to piece everything together.
Exactly. And sometimes those tiny details can tell you so much. Like, remember Anne Harris, the laundress? Her story shows how crucial that kind of work was, even if it's often overlooked.
It also gives you a sense of, well, the economic realities back then for a skilled worker. Imagine the challenges, right? Long hours, demanding work, and that pressure to keep the king, well, presentable.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in this romantic idea of the Tudor era, but her story really shows that for a lot of people, life was anything BOT glamorous. And Anne's story, it's just one example, right? Think of all those other women whose contributions we might never even know about.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, how many stories are still waiting to be discovered?
Oh, I'm sure there are countless stories tucked away in archives, just waiting for historians to find them.
And that's what makes history so exciting, isn't it? It's constantly evolving, always new discoveries and new interpretations.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that history, it's not static. It's this ongoing conversation, this dialogue between the past and the present.
I like that. History is a conversation. It reminds us that we all have a part to play in, well, shaping how we understand the past and how it shapes us.
Yeah, and sometimes that re-examination, it leads us to question those old assumptions, confront things that are, well, uncomfortable. It's not always easy, but it's crucial if we really want to get a deeper, more nuanced view of the past.
Exactly. It's about asking the tough questions, digging deeper, not just settling for simple answers. That's what makes history so fascinating. It's not just memorizing dates and names. It's about, engaging with this messy, complex, and sometimes, contradictory nature of human experience.
It's about understanding what forces have shaped our world, the legacies we inherit, and, the choices we make now that'll shape the future.
It's amazing to think how those stories from centuries ago can still feel so relevant today. It's a reminder that we're all connected across time and culture.
Absolutely. We're all part of something so much bigger than ourselves, this continuum of human experience stretching back through time. And by exploring the past, we gain these insights that can help us make sense of the present and guide our actions for the future.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to emphasize one more thing. History isn't just about those grand narratives or, famous people. It's about all those individuals whose lives, choices, actions have shaped the world we live in.
Right. It's about recognizing the power of ordinary people, their resilience, their creativity, their ability to make a difference, even when it seems like there are these impossible obstacles. And understanding that history, it's not this fixed thing, it's constantly evolving.
I love that. History as a conversation. What a great way to think about it.
Mm.
It means that, well, we all have this responsibility to learn from the past, engage with the present, and help create a future that reflects our values and aspirations.
It is empowering, isn't it?
So we've explored this world of the Tudors, from Hampton Court Palace to those everyday lives of, laborers, laundresses, everyone. We've uncovered all these hidden stories, challenged those assumptions we might have, and, well, found all these connections that kind of bridge centuries.
And really, this is just the start, right? There's so much more to uncover, so many fascinating stories just waiting.
If you're as intrigued as I am, you have to go see Hampton Court Palace for yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine just walking those halls, seeing those incredible objects, those spaces firsthand.
And, feeling that weight of history all around you, it's an amazing experience.
It's like you're stepping back in time and becoming part of that conversation we talked about. And as you're exploring the palace, keep asking those questions, right?
Yeah.
Look beyond the surface. Think about all those different perspectives that shape how we understand history.
Because history, it's not just about the past, right?
Exactly.
It's those connections we make between then and now, and the insights we get that can help us with, well, all the complexities of our own time.
Yeah, it's about recognizing the power of human stories, those echoes of the past that still resonate today, and the choices we make that'll shape the future.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into this world of history. There's always something new to discover, and those discoveries can really enrich our lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Tudors. But this is just the start of your OWN exploration.
We hope you'll join us again for our next adventure as we uncover more of those hidden stories and, those legacies that continue to impact us.